I'll just grab my cord, plug this laptop in so the screen is up. Kia ora, g'day, welcome back everybody. So thought I'd jump on this and do a live very quickly. Sorry, don't have a fancy background. This is in response to, or follow-up to the Q&A video that I did, because there's some really good comments come through, and I also realized there's likely some gaps with regards to I suppose my verbal response, video response to the person that sent through the email and their query and sort of where they're at. So I'll put this up here, not expecting anybody to be on this live. This is just more for me to get this out of my head, because there's been a bunch of questions and stuff, or comments I should say, that have come through. So the first one that I saw, which probably triggered this and caused me to reflect on my response with regards to the video that I put up today, is from at LifoFish-J5T. So, hey, appreciate you taking some time here. You've got in here, taking civilians, and I'll just read through the comment that you've got. I've done a written reply to yours as well. Hopefully it's come through, but I figured I'll jump on here as well, because then I've seen a few other ones which I'll look to get to, or try to get to as well. So it's got here, taking civilians, or you've got here at LifoFish-J5T. You've said taking civilians and placing them into Special Forces units is very idiotic. You need to have an extensive infantry background of at least 4 to 5 years before you learn Special Forces techniques. Otherwise, it would just be a SWAT team, not a Special Forces team, full stop. How would a SAS soldier with no infantry background expect to do well in a potential firefight against a larger force? Question mark. So you got, you made me crack up actually, and I think I put that in my response to you, the written one. Hopefully that's come through to you. You've got a lot of stuff in there, and you make some, I suppose, from your perspective, some good observations from your point of view. Now, I don't know if you've served in the New Zealand Defence Force or the Australian Defence Force, or whether you've served in another military. If you haven't, that's absolutely okay. If you have, that's cool as well. Feel free to let me know. But I put down a bunch of stuff there. I'm not going to read through the reply. What I'll try to do is just shoot from the hip and just try to speak with a little bit more information without delving into a lot of specifics, because some of that stuff, or some of the stuff that I'll share, may be very different, or may have changed or been tweaked slightly. So taking civilians and placing them into Special Forces units. At least in New Zealand and Australia, they don't take civilians and put them straight into a Special Forces unit. That's not how the process works. So what they do have, from my understanding, and I believe that's still the case in Australia, is that there is an option for civilians that may want to apply to join a Special Forces unit. And as an example, in NZ or Australia, they may want to reach out and apply for the Special Air Service. Or in Australia, they may want to apply for the 2 Commando Regiment. So there's a process for that. That would involve, and I don't know the order, but that would involve some type of application, paperwork to be filled out. That would involve some screening to happen. That would involve some aptitude testing. That would involve probably some psychological testing, some form of medical testing, which would include drug and alcohol testing. So there would be a plethora of steps, little steps that need to be taken by an aspiring candidate, whether they are in the military as a regular force soldier, and or whether they're coming or wanting to apply and or go on selection straight from Civvy Street. So that's that first piece. To your first line, the SF units don't look to take civilians and then plonk them into an SF unit. It doesn't work like that. You need to have, your next part has got, you say you need to have an extensive infantry background of at least 4 to 5 years before you can learn Special Forces techniques. Otherwise, it would just be a SWAT team. So again, appreciate your perspective on that. But I'll say straight off the bat that that's not a need. It's not a, at least in NZ at the time when I went through, and in Australia, that was not a mandatory requirement to have 4 to 5 years you've got here. It was a recommendation. It was a suggestion from, I know during my time, some senior soldiers that recommended, it would probably pay if you had 3 to 5 years infantry grounding first before going on selection. And I heard them, but that's not what I joined up for. So if I use myself as an example before I mention some others without mentioning their names, but it wouldn't be too hard to probably look up at least one of those guys. I put in my paperwork to go on selection. I had been in battalion maybe a little over a year, and that was all I joined the military for. That's all I wanted to do. So I was a bit stubborn that way. Could I have benefited from spending 3 years, 2 years even, but 3 to 5 years in an infantry battalion before going on selection? Yeah, I could have. 100% I could have, and I would have. But my drive, I felt confident in my physical ability. I felt confident in my reasons for wanting to join, and I felt confident in my ability to learn what I would need to learn from a tactics perspective, from a strategy perspective, from any new weapons, from a whole bunch of other things that I just never would have got an opportunity to do, even if I spent 3 to 5 years in an infantry battalion, such as a lot of foreign weapons use, things to do with resistance to interrogation, demolitions, CQB, counterterrorism aspects, parachuting, the list goes on. Some of that I might have got an opportunity much later down the track, like a parachuting course. If I was lucky as an infantry person, I might have got on to a parachute course, possibly. Might have had the opportunity to get onto, and I did, but get onto some heavy weapons courses, which was cool. Maybe even onto some reconnaissance courses, and maybe even make it into a reconnaissance platoon. But for me, I didn't feel like I needed to wait, not because I knew what to expect, but because I felt like this is what I've joined the army for. I feel like I've got the bandwidth to be able to take in the information that's probably going to be not rammed down my throat, but going to be expected of me to assimilate as quickly as I can and apply it practically to at least reach the minimum standard. And so, long story short, I felt comfortable and confident in my ability to be able to do that. And a number of people that I've had the privilege to serve and work with have felt the same. Some of those, were corporals. They were NCOs with blinking 5, 8, 10 plus years experience in the military before they went on selection. And more power to them. That's awesome. Some of them had failed a selection prior to that, so they tried a bit earlier after doing a few years in the infantry unit, and they went on selection and they failed. So I guess to your comment in here that you need to have an extensive infantry background, I don't think that's the case at all. It wasn't the case for me, but could I have benefited from spending more time in an infantry battalion or unit before going on selection? 100%, I think I could have, but I don't think it's mandatory. In addition to that, I said I'd mention a couple of other examples. There was a guy that I joined the New Zealand Defence Force with. We were on the same basics, same core training. We ended up in the same rifle company, Victor Company 1RNZIR here in Palmerston North, New Zealand. And he went on selection. I didn't even know he was going on selection, but we must have been not long after core training, then in battalion for maybe a few months. So realistically, I start the time from being in an infantry battalion. Once you've done all your basic training, our basic training was 12 weeks. And then we went on to infantry core training, which was another 14 weeks, just specific to infantry. And then we marched out and then got to battalion. So I start my time in the infantry from when we got to our battalions. So from the time that we got there, he went on selection. We must have only been in battalion for about 7 months, maybe 8 months by that time. And next thing I knew, I rocked up to work one day and I was asking where he was, and guys said he was on selection. And I was like, what? Like, we've only just got here. So we've only just got to battalion. And he passed. He ended up, he went on and I'll get to this later on, but he went on to the reinforcement cycle the following year. He got RTU'd back to battalion during the patrol procedures phase, so that jungle aspect. So to your point around the techniques and that time and that experience, which would be beneficial and helpful in an infantry battalion to get that grounding, that's where, at least during my time, that's where there seemed to be a few challenges and issues where it wasn't uncommon for people to be removed from the reinforcement or the cycle of training, because of the fieldcraft and soldiering level and skills wasn't up to scratch for whatever those reasons may have been. Maybe they were making too much noise, maybe their equipment wasn't up to scratch, maybe their morning night routine, maybe their break contacts and weapon handling. It could have been a whole bunch of things as to why people were failing and or fail the patrol procedures. But what happened for him, and this is where I think the unit, from what I understand, has adapted and evolved in that over time as well. They didn't bin him and get rid of him and say he could never come back. They sent him back to battalion, and then he was able to go back again on the following year. So after I had passed, we ended up on the same cycle. So he came back, I think it might have been just before the patrol procedures course, and he smashed it, went all the way through. He got badged with the other guys in NZ. During my cohort, I didn't get badged. I had to stand on the side of the parade ground on that day, but he got badged with the guys there, went through, and I don't know how long he stayed in the unit for, but he went on to serve with the unit. And again, that's somebody who had even less experience than me in the army in an infantry unit before going on and passing selection. So that hopefully gives a bit of context in terms of the processes that the unit, that the regiment, that the SAS, that the military in general has in place to try to cross the T's and dot the I's and make sure that all the checks and balances work out, for the benefit of the individual, but also of the unit and the military as well. So, and then the other one that I'll share with that is I had the privilege to meet this guy at a barbecue maybe a couple of years ago in Hamilton. A gentleman who I had the privilege to interview when I was doing the Epic Aotearoa podcast, Phil Hokianga, one of his close friends that I think he was on selection with. Anyway, that guy, or one of the guys that he was on selection with, I won't drop his name here, but he has got a book out. He, from what I've been told, straight from Civilian Street onto the selection, past the New Zealand selection. I think he may have been at that time, may have needed to do an infantry corps training, and he may have even spent some time in an infantry battalion, possibly. Don't quote me on that. I don't know all the details because I haven't had the privilege of interviewing this particular person, who is one of Phil Hokianga's close friends. And then after that, then he went on to the cycle. Long story short, from what I understand, he went through, completed the New Zealand after the selection, after I think a stint doing the corps training, the infantry corps training, and then maybe some time in an infantry battalion. Then went on his cycle of training, passed, got badged. I don't know how long he spent in the NZSAS before he then went to the UK and passed the UKSF selection, got badged, and he deployed during the first Gulf War, and he was part of the Bravo 20 patrol. So I don't know this gentleman, like he's not a close friend or anything like that. Phil Hokianga was kind enough, gracious enough to allow me to interview him, so I'm not like a close friend with him either, but I reached out to him. I think he had seen some of the interviews that I'd done, and he was open to having a cordial or having a conversation with me anyway. So grateful for that. And it was Phil who invited me to the barbecue that he was hosting, whereby he had this gentleman there as well as a few others. So yeah, even less experience, straight from Civilian Street. That person clearly had a drive and a desire to want to be there, and his reasons for being there are his reasons. And, clearly he had the aptitude and the ability to pick up the knowledge, the training, the skills, the information that was being, what feels like being blasted or drinking out of a fire hose, to help him take that information on, retain it, and apply it. That drinking out of a fire hose I grabbed from a good friend of mine, Nick Caldwell, who mentioned that with regards to our time on the cycle together in Australia. So that's just to try to give a few different examples and context with regards to the comment or the thought that might be that you need to have 4 to 5 years infantry background experience before you can learn special forces techniques. That's not the case at all. It hasn't been the case in my experience, and there's just a couple of others that I've mentioned there without giving their names where that hasn't been the case either. Otherwise, it would just be a SWAT team. I'm not going to say anything about the SWAT team, not a special forces team. Yep, that's your opinion. That's cool. How would a SAS soldier with no infantry background expect to do well in a potential firefight against a larger force? That's an interesting comment. I mean, nobody knows. I personally had never been in a firefight until I was an operator within the Australian Special Air Service Regiment, and we deployed to Iraq in 2003. I'd never been in a contact up until that point, till we deployed. And so how would anybody go? Would be my question. People, I don't think anybody knows how they'll go until they're confronted face to face with rounds coming back at you from the enemy that you were there fighting or hunting or whatever the case may be. So to say that 4 to 5 years infantry experience is going to give you that background and give you an idea of how well you do in a firefight, I think that's a bit far-fetched as well. And also in gunfights, firefights, contacts, not that I've been in a lot. I've mentioned in another video, really, I consider one of the contacts that I've been in as being a significant contact, and the others I consider to sort of be skirmishes, little things off to the side which didn't last long, a few warning shots bladdered off, and then, you know, people bomb burst and disappeared. But each one was different, is the point that I was going to try to make. And just because an individual may act a certain way in one contact or a gunfight doesn't it shouldn't be assumed, I would say, that individual will act exactly the same way, do exactly the same things as what they did in the contact before. I think in a unit like that, when you've been on operations with individuals and you've been involved in a contact or contacts or firefights or whatever, there's a level of trust that's built up for sure, and people then know and feel like you can trust your mates that you're with and go, okay, yeah, cool, I know how this person's going to go, because I've seen what they did in the other contact or the other contacts that I've been involved with them in. So there's a level of trust and confidence that's built from that. But with regards to how would an SAS soldier with no infantry background expect to do well in a potential firefight against a larger force? Well, I had infantry experience. I had deployed also to East Timor on an operation there, and what's this? Fijarab. Sorry, bro. 1984, first time. Oh, bloody hell. How do I bring those comments back up? Sorry, bro. I missed your. Oh, hang on. What's this do? Sorry, can't see it. I just saw a first time catching your live, bro. Sweet as. Welcome. There's usually nobody here. So, no, that's not true. There's usually a few people that were kind enough to put up some comments. Anyway, I had infantry experience. I deployed to East Timor as part of a reconnaissance platoon. We were geared up, tooled up, ready to fight if we needed to. Never had a contact. How would I make it into the unit? How would I go in a contact? Truth is, I didn't know. I knew I didn't want to let my team down. Lots of comments most probably come from people that have zero. Yeah, sorry, I couldn't read fast enough. I don't know how to bring the comments back up on here, man. Sorry, team. Oh, what does this do? Nope, that just brought up a whole bunch of flip, mute, hide video, retouch. What's that do? Nothing other than make my finger block the bloody camera. Anyway, where was I? Yeah, so nobody knows, really. Individuals don't know until they're faced with that that moment, you know, when the rubber meets the road, so to speak. I've got some comments here. I see at LiFoFish J5T has replied to at 22 Dazza. Appreciate you, Dazza. Thanks very much for your comments. You could say the same with infantry, mate. How do you know you're going to react right in a firefight? In any case, yeah, sorry. So that's what I was just talking about. You need to experience it to gain experience at any level. That being said, going infantry is probably the best route to take, in my humble opinion. Yep. Agreed. And that's what hopefully I tried to get that across in my video. Like, that is my bias. Basic training, go infantry, or regular force, go infantry, then go on selection, if that's where you're wanting to go. Life of Fish has replied to Dazza, take the US Navy SEALs as an example. They take civilians with no prior infantry experience and teach them CQB and maritime reconnaissance techniques, and as a result, SEALs are terrible in conventional firefights. Look at how poorly they fought in Afghanistan. They had to call in the Rangers to save them over and over again whenever they got into a firefight. On the other hand, units like Delta Force and the British SAS do extremely well out in the open because they take former infantry guys from the 75th Rangers and the UK Parachute Regiment. So yeah, again, I'm not going to speak to the SEALs and the, comments around them being terrible in conventional firefights, etc. I wasn't there with them, and if this person or people are there, they're probably the ones that I would say, in my opinion, have the right to add their voice on that. I do like and agree with what you've said about Delta and the British SAS, and I'd probably throw SBS in there as well, because they recruit from similar types of pools, I guess, for want of a better term, with regards to, what's up, man? Cheers, bro. Appreciate you, Sammy T. Thank you very much. So, yeah, I do agree with that. They've got, it's well known, and the pioneers, the founding fathers of, at least the New Zealand, Australian SAS, what that's birthed. And I think, what's his name? Beckwith, Charlie Beckwith, I think. American, I think he founded the Delta Force, but I think he spent some time with Tutu. And then there was another guy, Bucky Burris, I think is his name. I did a reaction a little while ago, can't remember now, memory's a bit hazy, but he was also, Bucky Burris doesn't consider himself, he says there's only one founding member of Delta, and that's, I think he acknowledges Charles Beckwith, sorry if I've got the name wrong. And Bucky Burris, he was one of the original members, by the sounds of things, when Delta Force started being formed. And that Bucky Burris guy had gone over and done the 22 SAS selection and had successfully passed. But when you hear him speak, he says he managed to, sort of drag himself over the finish line and get through it. So seems like a really, really humble dude. But yeah, so that's why I agree with your comments and stuff there, what you're saying about Delta, British SAS, etc. Colonel Charles Beckwith, thank you very much. I was close. I forgot the colonel, but yeah, I'm glad I got the name right. So yeah, high level there. NZ Australia, NZ smaller pool. I don't know if they have similar requirements. So I think 2-2. Don't quote me on it, but I think they maybe have a minimum requirement of time that you have to have served in the military in general before you can go on selection. NZ at the time when I went through didn't have that. Not that I'm aware of, not for ORs anyway, or other ranks or non-commissioned officers, which is what I was. Officers was a different kettle of fish, from what I understand, or fish, depending on if you're tuning in from Australia. Yeah, so that's that. Appreciate your comments and the time and that on there. There's been a few others. So what's this one? At Jim, I'll say Jimmy, MC 10021. So many have this SF dream, but they seriously need... Oh, actually, before I read through that, I said I was going to talk about some of the processes. So from my understanding, at least here in NZ, I can't speak for Australia. I never went through the civilian route, and I don't know and didn't know anybody that completed the Australian SAS selection or SASR selection coming through the civilian street route. So I don't know anybody in that space. Here in NZ, what I do know, because they did it with a couple of guys that were TF during my selection. This is back in 1998. So I guess you could probably almost call TF civilians, but they weren't, because they had some time in the TF space. You were quite young when you went in, right? Yeah. I was 20 when I did the selection here in NZ. So yeah, and I turned 21 on the reinforcement cycle the following year. So yeah, I was young, not the youngest by any means. I believe there may have been one or two or a few others that were younger than me. But yeah, that's all I joined the army for. Young, dumb, and full of whatever the other word is. But here in NZ, the guys that now, whether they've come from a civilian background or territorial force, what they typically do if they've met those other requirements to just get onto the selection, and then if they complete and successfully pass the selection, and not only pass the selection, but then are what's the word? Then what's the wording I'm looking for? So you get through pass selection, and then if they successfully complete the requirements of selection to the required standard and they're deemed suitable, that's the word I'm looking for, suitable to progress onto the reinforcement cycle of training, then what would happen is, or what did happen, is that those that may be deemed or seen to have less experience, so how I wasn't deemed to be seen to not have as much experience, because they would have had my military record. They would have seen, oh, this guy's been in Victor Company 1 RNZIR for 2 minutes and he's come here on selection. So they could have, but they didn't, and not in my case, but they did in a couple of other guys, which I'll get to. So they could have said to me, yep, well done, you've been deemed suitable to progress onto the reinforcement cycle. Go back to battalion for another year, and instead of coming on the reinforcement cycle next year, starting next year, we'll get you to come back the year after. They could have done that. They didn't. And that's awesome. I actually, even when I completed selection and knew that I passed the selection, but I didn't know if I was going on to the cycle, I wasn't expecting to get an opportunity to go on cycle. I was expecting to march into the CO's office and be told, well done for passing, but unfortunately you're not deemed suitable to progress any further, but you can reapply again. That's what I thought I was going to get told, because I was so young. But I didn't care, because I was going to go back and do it again. It didn't matter to me. I wanted to keep going. I was going to keep going until I made it. So that was just where my head was at. Call me young, stupid, whatever, but it is what it is. So that didn't happen. Some other guys now, though, that were TF, and I don't know how long they were territorial force for, but they were on my same selection. They both passed, and they both, awesome, that's the right mentality. Thanks, Uti. Appreciate it. Yeah, I thought it worked out all right for me. So these two guys passed, but they both got sent. So they may have been in TF for, a couple of years, 3 years, maybe even longer. I know that they were both older than me, and one of them was, significantly older than me. I believe he was in his 30s, maybe mid-30s by that time, early to mid-30s. Apologies, bro, if you weren't, but I'm pretty sure you were. And they both got set, so more life experience, more mature. I don't know, like I said, I don't know how long he was in the TF for, but he was in the TF well enough to, I thought everybody was better at navigation than me. Like, I just took a bearing and knew how to march on that. His skills seemed to be a little bit better, or seemed to be better than mine from what I could tell, even during the pre-selection phase before the testing started. Anyway, they got sent to go do an infantry corps training down the South Island. Now, I had done an infantry corps training. They went and did that, and then they spent some time in an infantry battalion before they then, so essentially you could say they spent a whole year. They did a 12 or 14 week infantry corps training, then they spent the rest of that time in an infantry battalion. Then the year after, they were coming up to Auckland to get ready to then start their cycle of training. So, and they went through, they both got through, and they both got badged, they both passed. So why do I share that? Because as I mentioned earlier at the start, like, the unit is cognizant of the fact that if you've got civilians or TF, territorial soldiers, and maybe even some regular force soldiers, like my mate who I mentioned, we joined the army together, but he missed out on getting through the first time. He got sent back during the patrol procedures phase, but then he went back and then crushed it and then got badged with the other guys. So they're mindful, I have no doubt Australia would be the same. Again, they're not picking up and taking civilians and inserting them into an SF unit and going, here you go, now we're going to teach you all this cool stuff. There is a process, and they will take soldiers if they've been deemed suitable and if they've passed the prerequisites and all that sort of stuff, and selection is a prerequisite. If they've gotten through all of that and they've met the minimum standards or the requirements to a good enough standard, which is the minimum standard plus maybe a little bit more. There's a whole bunch of ongoing assessment that happens. The psychologists have a say in it, the directing staff, senior instructors, etc., all have input into each individual, and they're assessing your suitability to be there and progress. So they'll do all those checks and balances, and you will be sent to go and get some more time and some more experience. Usually in an infantry battalion has been the case, before you get an opportunity to come back on cycle. Why is that? I think, and I'm using a little bit of license here, so I may be wrong, but I think part of that is, in my opinion, the unit more than likely wants to try to set individuals up to be successful or to have the best chance of being successful. Why do I say that? Well, they've seen an individual or individuals that have been prepared to risk it all, go on selection and put in their application. Hey, Dan, good to see you, bro. Put in their paperwork, go on selection, be thrashed, come out 15, 20 plus kilos lighter than what they were. And they can see that there's something about that individual or those individuals that have been willing to suffer and go through that. And so rather than setting them up to fail and just going, okay, cool, you come jump straight on the cycle the following year without giving them an opportunity to, maybe refine some skills or maybe learn a few more skills based on the military records that they'll have of the candidates and the applicants, they look to try to, I feel like they're looking to try to set them up to be successful. Now, I know those two TF guys, when they're told that they needed to go to infantry corps training, I don't think they were too phased about it. They would have loved to have been on the same cycle, like they would have, if we could have all been on the same cycle together because we had been through selection together. I have no doubt if they were given the option, do you want to go do corps training, spend some time in battalion, then come on the cycle the following year? Or do you want to just go straight on the cycle? I'm pretty sure both of them probably would have said, I want to go straight on cycle. I personally can't think of anyone off the top of my head that would say, let me do another year back in a battalion before I come back. Haha, this fella yapping hasn't clicked. What's that? Nice gun, brother. Not me. What gun? Anyway, I still haven't clicked. I'm not sure if that was for me or not. I don't think those. I don't know of anybody that would have chosen it. I think everybody would choose. I want to go on cycle now, so that they can, start learning the craft, so to speak, and getting a taste for what that life's going to be like. So, I probably should have spoken a bit about that in the processes. They may be quite different. They may have changed, but I think in essence, there are people that have passed selection that have been sent back to battalion. There are people that have passed and maybe been sent on to, so people from another corps. So not necessarily infantry. They may have come from a non-combat role and have passed selection. And I know of the unit sending guys to an infantry unit to do an infantry corps training and then spend some time in an infantry battalion before getting them to go back up on a cycle. So that, I sent you a pic of the new. Oh, yeah, okay, I got you. Yeah, I'm with you now. Yes, I do know who you are. Where was I? Yeah, so those coming from another corps, they will get more than likely. And again, it may depend on their experience and what they've done. But I know of the unit or the regiment giving opportunity for those that have come from another corps or non-infantry role to go and do an infantry corps training and then spend some time in an infantry battalion before going up and doing the cycle of training, because they want to set them up to succeed, because they've gone through that, and there's some time, effort, money that's gone into identifying those individuals that have put their hand up, and then they want to give them the best chance. That's just my take, my opinion. They want to give them the best chance when they come onto cycle of being able to successfully complete those courses. Still going to be, it's still going to be pretty hectic. Still going to be a lot of work to do, but it can be done, and it has been done. So that's that piece on there. Hopefully I've covered off on that. I'll come back to at Jimmy MC 10021. So many have this SF dream, but they seriously need to spend some time in an infantry unit. Yep, I'm biased to that. I think anybody would benefit from joining infantry. That's just my take. Whether it's RF, regular force, or TF, territorials, or part-time. It is not like Call of Duty. It is not like Call of Duty. Yep. Weapons and kits are heavy. It gets very cold or very hot. You get very, very, very tired. Seriously, before even considering SF, do a couple of years in a combat arms. My 2 cents worth. Great advice, great advice. Again, like I've said, that's not a mandatory, right? It's not what I would say is not that I'm aware of, there doesn't appear to be any sort of proven recipe, for want of a better term, that is proven to work. Why do I say that? Well, I was on selection in NZ with guys that were sergeants that had been in the army for more than 10 years, who had failed selections before and then, gone through. Then there was blinking 2-minute in the battalion me, not been there long, fresh as, eyes wide open, like trying to take in everything, trying to be calculated with the risks that I did take. And I thought, I was confident enough in my ability physically and mentally to go on selection, to do what was asked and to take on whatever information. At the end of selection, did I think I was going to get selected for cycle? No, I didn't. I thought I was going to get told, good work, but yeah, go away, come back again. Does NZ have recon platoons? Yep, they do. Connor M, they do have recon. So they've got in your infantry battalion, at least during my time, it may be a bit different now in terms of the structure, but we typically had 3 rifle companies. I was in one of those rifle companies, 3 platoons within those rifle companies, and each platoon's roughly about 30 odd soldiers. And then you've got your platoon sergeant and platoon commander and that sort of thing. And then those 3 rifle companies, then you had support company. And in support company, there was recon platoon, there was DFSW or heavy weapons, there was mortar platoon, there was, at the time, we had assault pioneers, there were the SIGs. So there were several other support company elements, and recon platoon was one of those. Long-winded answer to your question, but yeah, so you had that. This guy here, back to Jimmy's comment, yeah, like it's valid, man, in terms of getting infantry experience. You can't, I don't think you can deny that. I'd be surprised if anybody denied that. But at the same time, there are people that have gone through successfully past selection and cycle. Thanks, Jay. You're welcome, Connor. Thank you. There are people that have gone through and passed selection without having the infantry background and without having that same amount of time and experience. So definitely experience helps, 100%. But from a selection perspective, and I'm just basing this largely on my experience and people that I know and some of those who are close friends, it's not everything. If you've got the right, or I don't know what the right is, but if you've got the right attitude, you seem to be a good person, you're wanting to go there for the right reasons, and whatever those reasons are, they're going to be very different, or there'll probably be a lot of similarities, but again, there'll be some differences for each person. And you've physically prepared yourself, I think you'll do well. What type of people are the ones that have successfully passed SF selection without infantry experience? What type of people? Types of people that I've seen, so Navy, Air Force engineers, like trade engineers, not a combat engineer's role. Those are some of the people that I've seen get through. They were just really good people, like people that you would, well, for me anyway, people that I was happy to hang out with, have a chat with, people that I was happy to have a joke and a laugh with. They had a good sense of humor. They weren't they were pretty proactive with regards to any work, like they would just muck in and get in there. I wouldn't have, if I didn't see them with their different coloured beret on, and their different corps belt in the New Zealand Defence Force anyway, I probably would have just thought that they were infantry. Kellen, what type of people are the ones that have do you think some people go to, say, UKSF? Sorry, I didn't read that in time. Deployment frequency. Bro, I was too slow to read that question. Imagine an increase in operational deployment frequency compared to NZ. Oh, people go to, say, UK. Yeah. So that first one that I saw, sorry, I missed the second one that you put up there. the first one in around people going to, maybe I should just make this a Q&A, but this is good. I'm happy to answer these questions as best I can anyway. I think at the time when I was coming through NZ anyway, yeah, Kiwis were going to the UK because like UK has always had a high operational tempo um, for the longest time. Even before when I went to Australia, even while I was there, it always seemed like 2-2 was the place to be because of the operations. So a number of Kiwis um, that have been badge members in the NZ SAS. It's a whole bunch that have gone over. You know, they've gone through whatever the process is. They applied, they got accepted, they went over, and they went through the selection. You know, there's one door, one gate to go through, and the Kiwis, as far as I know, that have gone there, have all had to go through it. Nobody's been given a golden handshake or anything that I'm aware of, and gone, here you go, come straight in. And I think that's a cool part about it. I've never met a Kiwi that has gone over, passed, been badged, and gone, oh, they should have just let me straight in. Never. I don't think any of them would ever say that. Maybe some might have thought that internally because they may have just been very confident in their ability to be able to go through it. But I've never met a Kiwi come out and say, oh, they should have just let me in. And if anything, the ones that I have met, they've been grateful that they've had to go through that same door as everybody else because same way I felt in Australia, nobody could say I backdoored it. Not one person, because I did the same thing as maybe not the exact same selection as the other guys that were there, but I went through the selection, went through the cycle. So the operational tempo has always, as far as I'm aware or what I knew, was always a draw card for the Kiwis that went over to 2-2 because of that. Australia at the time when I went over, there was one other Kiwi that was already in the Australian regiment. He was ex-Kiwi SAS badged, went over to Australia. From what I remember from the story, but I never got to ask him personally myself, was that he went over, he failed the 3.2 on his first time. So then, it's a 3.2 isn't one of those activities that we did or do here in the NZ Defence Force, but thinking about it, it is a lung buster and a great activity. And so he missed out on that. He's trained the house down, got that squared away, and then he smashed selection, went on and served. Similar types of people with civilian life, what skills they have made successful. I recall one of the podcasts James Brown was on topic came up to us, and I was just retired, no civilian that had passed selection made it through cycle. Cool. Okay, I haven't seen that on Jamie's thing, so that's a cool comment that maybe from Jamie's time. But yeah, I would say based on what I know, there is not many, but there are and have been some that have gone through. But yeah, Jamie would know more to that, especially with the amount of time that he spent there as well. What year did you join the military? In 96. 96? Yeah, 96. I was looking at the boss. So yeah, joined in 96. I think it might have been April, August, something like that. Basic 295 anyway. So whatever year that was, I think it was 1996. Where was I? Yeah, so Australia, when I went over there, I don't know what sort of, I know that the guys over there had been in and out of Afghanistan. I don't know how frequently they were doing, or they had done trips and stuff there. And yeah, from what I could tell, it didn't seem like there was a supercharged high operational tempo in comparison to what I imagined 2-2 was like, given that I hadn't been there. Sammy T, did you know guys who went from SAS to police tactical units or other way around from police into SF? I don't know of any that went from police into SF, but I do know of guys that were former badged members that went into the policing space. Did you do the full 2-2? Nah, no, I didn't. I did just under 10 years total. So that's New Zealand Defence Force and Australian. No, we signed, I think at my time when we signed up, we signed for 20 years, but it was never one of those. I think we were told early on, like if you wanted to get out earlier, you could. Like there were some guys that got out after a year, 2 years in the army, guys that were on my basic. So it wasn't I don't know whether it was a scare tactic or what, but you didn't have to do 20 years. But I always thought I would do a minimum 20 years. Also never thought I'd be married. Also never thought I'd have kids. Next minute, wife, 6 children later. Not counting the contracting. No, not counting the contracting. Contracting was done well and truly. So I got out in 2005. Yeah, so 96, so 9 years, just under 10 years. Yeah, thereabouts. And then went into contracting from there for about 4 years, 4.5 years from there. Yeah. Callan Nick Minute, yeah. So, where was I? I was blinking on, I was doing this follow-up for the civilian to soldier path. There were some other questions and I've missed a whole bunch of questions. I'm so sorry. Those I'm not reading fast enough and I don't know how to let the comments stay up on my phone because that's what I'm looking at it on while I look at this stuff here on the laptop. When is sniper school or something similar offered in regular army? Oh, that's a good question. I think these days, like there was sniper courses and stuff that were going around in infantry when I joined in NZ. I can't speak for Australia. It may have been similar though, because they're pretty similar in terms of what they do, even the weapons we were using at the time. But typically you needed to be, I suppose, have a good record, been in the unit for a while, so work your way up, be one of the senior soldiers at least, and then put in an application if courses and that were coming up and coming around. Typically though, that type of course, like the snipers courses, were usually offered to those that were already in a support company. And those that were in a support company, like the recon platoon that I told you, that I spoke about, the heavy weapons and mortars, assault pioneers, communications, etc., they were typically soldiers that had already been in the army for, you know, sort of that 3 to 5 year plus range bracket. So there's a whole bunch of them. Like those platoons that I just mentioned, you've got hundreds of, well, yeah, hundreds? A few dozens of people in there anyway who are going to get the pick. When you joined, I joined the military. When you left, I was 10 years old when so I didn't see who that was. Yeah, crack up. So that's why I say in a lot of my videos, you know, take what I say with a pinch of salt, eh? Like a lot of things probably changed. I was 10, I have one. What level of gun license do you have the military with? No, during my time and even still today, you don't have to have a weapons license. I never had a weapons license. Actually, funny story on that. When this was when I was in Australia, I just happened to go with one of my mates who was putting in and applying for a weapons license. Like us as soldiers, well, at least during my time, we knew you couldn't have a weapon unless you were licensed out on civilian street. You know, so your own weapons. So some of the guys did have weapons. They had pistols and stuff locked up in safes. This was my time over in Australia. I wasn't one of those guys. I didn't go spending money on guns and that sort of stuff. My shooting and all that sort of stuff I just did with the military stuff when I was at work. And so went with my mate. He goes to put, I think we're in Cottesloe in Perth, goes in to wherever it was that we needed to be, or he needed to be. And when I think he was the part he needed to go to the police station. So we went to the local police station, and the police officer there was the one that said to him, goes, "Oh, do you guys need a license?" So I was just standing there with him just because I was just nosy and curious, and we were heading out after that. And he was in there with his paperwork that he had filled out, taking it in. And even the police officer thought that we didn't need a license. So that was a pretty hard case. But yes, we need licenses. We would need whatever license is required by us to have out on civilian street, whether you're a soldier or not. So yeah, hopefully that helps, bro. There's no free pass just because you're a soldier. Okay. So I've forgotten the questions now. I'm jumping back into this. So yeah, we did Jimmy's one. This one here, at MySoap23. Thank you, bro, as well. Supporter of the channel. Call that, yeah, all good, Connor M. Since 2010-ish, when civilians were first allowed to apply, I believe about 5 civilians out of 100 or so, maybe less, I can't remember the actual number, have actually passed the selection. There is no official info as to if they became badge members or not. Passing selection, you then go on to basic army training, and assuming you pass that, you'll then go on to cycle. Words of the recruiter when I was pursuing that pathway. Cool, that's cool. So that's, like I said, there's probably some changes that have happened since my time. So it may not be that you apply. I mentioned that there would have been some type of screening, and then having the opportunity. I think I have still got a couple of friends that are still there and that have spoken about some of the stuff that they do, but I won't go on repeating that here. I'll just let people like this person at MySoap23 who's gone through the process, I'll just let them discover what that looks like. Interesting that passing selection, you then go on to basic army training. So that's interesting. That's new to me. That I definitely wouldn't be wanting to do that after passing selection. But but I think those coming from a civilian street, if they pass selection, I'd like to think they probably won't care. They'll be like, oh, okay, yeah, cool, 12 weeks, go do that training, or whatever it is now, 10, 12, 14 weeks, however long basic training is. Then go do a core training, 12, 14, 16 weeks. It has varied over the years between those sort of numbers for infantry core training. Don't ask me why. And then carrying on. So I think, let me just check and make sure that that's all of them. I think it is. Yeah, cool. So that's all those questions and comments and stuff on there that I wanted to just do this live as a follow-up to it. Hopefully the title, I can't even see the title of this. I did try to put it in there as the follow-up. No free pass, Dan, unless you did your NZ Farms license while you worked with the Hey, all day Devo, mana bro. Yeah, so that's that. Hopefully that helps. I wanted to put this up just to give a little bit more context, because after I read that first question from, it's gone now, from the, where is he? I'll find it. LIFO Fish. He raised some good points apart from making me laugh. I was like, oh, bloody hell. There's a whole bunch of information in there that I haven't included, and that people will probably be scratching their head and going, surely you can't just go straight in off Civvy Street. Sorry, there was a question that just went up and I missed it as I was talking. So I'll take questions. I wonder if I can, surely there's a way to bring up the comments. What is this little comment thing down here? Live chat. Oh, look at that. Live chat, all messages visible. Oh, look at that. I just figured it out. Oh, sorry, my finger is bloody right in the way of the camera. In the UK, you can join 21 and 23 SA straight as a civvy, but they are not the same. Oh, yeah. I think those may be the reserve units. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think they may be the territorial or the reserve units of the SAS. Hey, bring that back up. You pass selection, then do basic army training. Then I think you have to do advanced infantry training before you go to the SAS training cycle. Okay, cool. Stephen 4722, thank you for that, bro. Now I'll see if I can find these other questions that I missed. I saw the no free pass for Dan. I have one. What level? Oh, yeah, no, I've already answered that. I was 10-year-old when you joined. I joined the military when you left. When is sniper school? Yeah, you got to sort of earn an opportunity to get on that, or if you're lucky. I didn't get onto a sniper course until I was in the regiment in Australia. So there was a sniper course that came up, and I was lucky enough to get on that. Nick, man, not counting the continuity. Okay, so did you know guys who went from SAS to police or tactical? Oh, yeah, sorry. I don't even know if I finished answering that question. So I do know of guys that went from the unit from the SAS to the police. I don't know if they went straight into TRG or anything like that, but I know that some guys went into the police force. I don't know of the reverse of guys from a policing background looking to come or having been successful in coming over to the SAS. So, but there may be though. Did that one, Zach, to then become a badge member, I require it. So that was Zach talking about Jamie Pinnell's one. So yeah, to his knowledge, as of 2015, when he retired, no civilian had passed selection, made it through cycle. Yep. So if Jamie said that, yeah, Jamie will have like a massive amount of experience to know. I think I may not be accurate on this, but I think there may have been a civilian that may have passed selection, that is, possibly recently, but it's still a long road. Like everybody knows, selection is just the first little stage gate of a bigger machine, bigger process. Callan, again, more so types of people from civilian life. What skills did they have? What made them successful candidates? The guy that I was referring to that was part of Bravo 20, from what I had been told, he came from a hearty farming background, just hard work, labouring type work. obviously he must have been a good person, because he's friends with Big Phil Hokianga or Hoki. But again, I didn't know him. I didn't know him. I got to meet him, and he seemed like a nice guy, but quite quiet and reserved in that as well. Wasn't real flamboyant or anything like that, or wasn't extrovert anyway. Just sort of taking everything in and there catching up with his mate. He may be a bit different once he's got a few drinks under his belly. I don't know. Maybe everybody is different, but he seemed like a good dude. What skills? Yeah, so I can't really answer that properly. What made them successful candidates? I would say probably his mindset, his work ethic. A hearty farmer coming like that, they're used to early starts, long days, little food, no sleep, or little to no sleep, and just getting up and rinse and repeating and doing that over and over and over again, so that probably played to his advantage, I would say, to a degree with regards to the work and selection, I suppose, when it came to selection. And then I don't know, I can't speak for his ability, but clearly he must have had a really good ability to take on board a heck of a lot of information in a short period of time, learn those skills to LIFO Fisher's comments around tactics, strategy, all that sort of stuff, SF type skills and strategies, and been able to apply them to the standard, and then no doubt likely improve them as he went along. Do you think some people go to, oh yeah, already did that one. Yep, I think that was the case. What type of people are the ones that have successfully passed SF selection without infantry experience? I think I spoke about that. That have successfully passed SF selection without infantry experience. Yeah, I did speak about that when I spoke about non-combat engineer roles, Navy, Air Force. Yeah. Infantry, recon platoons. Yes, I answered that one. I didn't. Oh, Dan, I didn't know civvies could even do selection until you told me. That's wild. Yeah, it's a bit of a process. Like there's quite a few hoops to jump through before they can, even get to the start line. But it is open for them to put in their application. I think that's it. I don't think there's any more. I'm just scrolling down now. Sorry. Yes, 21 and 23 are reserve. Oh, yeah, thank you for that, H. Not sure if you've said this before. Sorry, there's some questions that have come up now, which I bloody wasn't even, or was scrolling through the old ones. I think you have to do advanced. Oh, yeah, did that one. Drought, not sure if you've said this before. I joined, but what steps, if you were a civilian wanting to join, would you take before going on selection? Say that again. Not sure if you've said this before. I joined. Oh, yeah, okay, before you joined the live. But what steps, if you were a civilian wanting to join, would you take before going on selection? If I was a civilian wanting to go on selection, I've been asked this question before. I personally wouldn't change anything of what I did. I'd join regular force and I'd join infantry, and I would, go through basic training, core training thing. If I was gonna change anything, and not do that, like that would always be my go-to option. But an option would be if I wanted to stay a civilian and get some exposure and get hopefully some knowledge and experience in that, I'd join the TF. Part-time military, spend the rest of my time training. So training and recovering and all that sort of stuff. And then where I could, show up on the days and dates that I've got a parade for the TF, the Territorial Force, and try to be part of an infantry unit in the TF, again, to get that exposure with regards to the routines, the pack, the kit and equipment, weapon handling, tactics, SOPs, etc. And try and, navigation, all those sorts of things would be what I would get into. It would also give me an opportunity to, there's sometimes you'll have some people in a TF unit that were badged operators and or that have passed selection, maybe didn't get badged. So you have an opportunity to pick people's brains once you get to know them and ask some questions, which can give you some more tips. But straight up as a civilian, personally, for me, I don't think it would have worked for me. So that's why I always, when I've been asked that question before, I wouldn't change it. I'd go regular force, I'd go infantry, and I'd do that, and then I'd go on selection. Hopefully that helps. Drought Joe's Reckoning course. What's that for? Drought Joe's Reckoning course. Haha. You're not wrong. Oh, okay, yeah. Oh, yeah, I should have actually. I have been bailed up about being pretty slack and useless with regards to my promotion of the Reckoning. But hey, it is what it is. People will either stumble across it, or maybe I'll do a video or something in the coming days or weeks or whatever. So if people want to do it, they'll do it. If they don't, yeah, that's all right. Dan, this may have been covered, but does the removal of membership change the Reckoning in any way? Or is it just open to anyone now? Oh, no, the Reckoning was always open to anyone. It was never just for members. I don't know if there, oh, no, I think there was at least a couple of members that, I think what I had there was that members would be given priority to sign up if there were any members that wanted to do the Reckoning. So, yeah, I think that may be what you mean, Dan, with that. But yeah, anybody can do it if they feel they're ready and they want to do that, then they know what to do. Zach, there is bound to be a few machines walking among us that'd be great in the unit, but just have no desire. Yeah, I'd agree with that. Yeah, there's probably some people that are maybe very capable. One thing that stands out to me just on that comment, and I didn't realize until I just stumbled across this little short video clip of Brent Tucker talking. I can't remember the podcast that he was on, but it was just a short, so I watched it. And I think it was people maybe bad-mouthing him, saying that he, what he was doing on the Anti-Hero podcast, calling out all the stolen valor stuff, etc., and tarnishing the SF community with what he was doing and tearing people down. He had a response to that, and it was pretty cool. He was talking about, because I didn't realize he had no desire to join the military. And I think 9/11 might have been the catalyst for him, as I think it was for a number of Americans and maybe people in the military in general, regardless of where they were from, may have been. And then and then he went on. So to your comment, Zach, yeah, there's probably a few people out there that maybe have no desire or drive, but maybe just need something to spark for them to go, actually, that is what I want to do. And I think, I don't know all the details because I haven't watched the full podcast of Brent being interviewed, but that's on my to-do list. I have been sent some suggestions. Maybe he talks about that. He has done an interview on the Sean Ryan show, so I will get around to doing a reaction to that one where it probably delves deeper into that. But the short clip that I saw just the other day, he wasn't on the Sean Ryan show talking about it, is saying, if you want to call me out as this bad person that's doing all these things, somebody who had no desire to join the military in the first place, then went on and did this, went on and did that, and took a bullet for my country, etc. He talks about a few things, and you think that and he still delivers a whole bunch of training for police, for veterans, for free, still does a whole bunch of things for free. And he's saying, you're thinking that I'm doing all of this just for money or whatever. He's saying, you guys don't know me at all. So pretty powerful comment, I thought, or statement when I was watching that. And so I need to get around to doing a reaction to his interview. Stephen, it's a shame NZDF doesn't have a tier 2 unit like an Airborne Ranger Company that provides a unit for people who aren't quite tier 1 level but are still high level soldiers. Yeah, it's a great point. I think the Damien Porter, when he was a part of the NZSAS commando unit, I think they did, don't quote me on it, but I think they did the first maybe 48 to 72 hours, first 2 or 3 days of the NZSAS selection. And then they, if they got through that, then they had the opportunity, depending on how well they did, then they had the opportunity to go to the commandos. And at the time, I think they were predominantly looking after the counter-terrorism stuff from a domestic perspective. I don't know all the details because I haven't looked into it, but it would be, yeah, you're right, like the, what is it? The Green Berets and all that sort of stuff, Navy SEALs. It would be cool to have another pool of soldiers to draw from. Perfect, thanks for the response. I finally got to the guts of the JCal reaction also. What a bunch of Muppets. Yep, involved in that caper. Yeah, 100%, man. It's gutting to see that. Yes, that's correct about D Squadron. Roger that. Cool. Hey, that's holy heck, that's over an hour of me yapping away, probably making no sense. If you don't have any other questions, I will give you back your time. But otherwise, if you have got questions, that's cool. But I appreciate everybody's time and support. Thank you very much. Go have dinner, bro. I'm all good. I'm full, so I don't need to eat anything else. What is the time anyway? Past dinner time anyway. 7:15. Be too late. Yeah, dinner's had. I'm good. All of yous go have dinner. Thank you very much for your time, support. Appreciate yous. As always, go always a little further. Remember who dares wins and who cares wins. And until the next video, big mana wave coming from me to you, filled with my aroha, respect, appreciation, and gratitude for you all. NZ doesn't have a tier 2 unit. Not in the green beret sense of the word that I know of. Cheers, bro. Sorry, I just banged the wall. All right, stop. Yes, stop.